Hello, Loveland. I'm Mike Meldon, and this is your Loveland Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Gina Dubell-Smith, eXp Realty, and Stone Pillars Farm. And we're back with another Loveland City Council Candidate episode. Today, you're going to hear my conversation with my friend, Sherry Hamlin. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I've chosen to publicly endorse 2 candidates out of 4 open spots in this race, and Sherry is one of them. I have been hoping that she would run for years, and now that she is, I couldn't be more excited about the possibility of her joining the dais as a member of Loveland City Council. If you'd like to hear my full endorsement, you can find it on her campaign website. Be sure to check that out. I hope you enjoy our conversation and learn more about Sherry and why she would be a great addition to our city government. Today is Friday, October 17th, 2025, and it's a good Who Day Friday.
So professionally, I am a certified project manager. I work in the legal and compliance department for an insurance company.
Ooh.
And I just celebrated my 20th year today.
Nice.
But I have been in the insurance industry for probably close to 45 years.
Okay.
So I literally started a co-op at an insurance agency out of high school.
Nice.
So the insurance industry is pretty much all I know.
Out of Loveland High School.
And I graduated Loveland schools. Yes, absolutely. I actually went from kindergarten through high school in Loveland. So I have known no other school. Of course, it was very different back then. The high school on Rich Road didn't exist back then.
Mm-hmm.
The high school that I graduated from was on Lebanon Road, which is now the intermediate school. So personally, I grew up in the Loveland Heights. My family moved to the Heights when I was just a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived on Apache Court, if you know where that's at, off of Seminole.
Yep.
So, rode my bike in Tomahawk Trail, played kickball in our cul-de-sac.
Did you know Todd's family?
Todd was a year behind me, I think, in school. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I knew him and his twin brother, Dean.
Okay.
So, yes, I did. And Todd's first girlfriend was my neighbor. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was Donna.
Small world.
Yeah, small world. So, we the big store in town was the Amity Five and Dime, which was down in not Shoppers Haven. It was where
Where Goodwill is.
Where Goodwill is. Yeah,
I was
don't know
looking.
what that shopping center's called now.
I was actually looking at that photo of that. There's a Thriftway in there too at one point.
My mom used to work at Thriftway. She was a
Okay.
cashier at Thriftway.
Yeah, I was looking at that photo. I have the History of Loveland book here, and one thing I was looking at is the photo of that strip mall and seeing the heights behind it before it was developed.
Yep.
Or maybe part of it was, but it's just a bald hill. Really cool stuff.
Yeah. So we used to walk down to the Amity Five and Dime, and you could get a giant bag of candy. The first thing they catered to the kids.
That's awesome.
So you walked in the store, and there would just be this massive display of candy, and you could get a whole bag full of candy for $1, and it was just a great thing.
That's awesome.
So I got married at the ripe old age of 18. Married my high school sweetheart, and then we moved away for a period of time. But at some point, was divorced, and my daughters and I moved back to Loveland, and I raised them here as a single mom. So my daughters now are adults, and my youngest actually still lives in Loveland, though. She lives in the Heights.
Awesome.
So just literally blocks away from where I grew up.
That's great.
And the joy of my life right now is my 7-year-old granddaughter. So
Heck yeah.
she was, we did a sleepover a couple of weeks ago, and we did lots of eating out and popsicles. Went to the Kenwood Mall and did Build-A-Bear. And
Oh, that's great.
so we had a great time. So I don't get to have sleepovers with her very often, but it's fun when we do. Education-wise, so when I got married, I put my, college plans on hold and became, wife, mom, and homemaker. And then at some point after I became single, decided it was time to I needed that degree in order to help my career. So I went to college as an adult. I did not get my degree until I was 50 years old.
Really? I mean, like you laugh about it, but I think that's so admirable.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I was a single mom, and at the time I was actually working a job where it was like 60-hour work week. Even I look back on it sometimes and go, I don't know
How did you
I
do
don't know
it?
how I pulled it off.
Yeah.
I don't know how I pulled it off. But
Accomplishment to be proud of.
yes, in hindsight, it's something I'm very, very proud of. So I graduated magna cum laude from Thomas More College. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration and an associate's in management. So yeah, that's something I'm very proud of. Back then, I think it was just, there were so many balls in the air that you don't stop to think about what the craziness of it all. I can remember literally my weekends. I lived my weekends in half-hour to an hour increments. Like I would piece up my day. It would be like, I'd spend 30 minutes to an hour on homework or projects that I needed to do for school. And then I would spend the next 30 minutes, half hour doing, yard work or housework or whatever. And then, running the kids. Literally from the time I got off on Friday night till the time I went back to work on Monday morning, that's how I lived my life.
And you graduated at 50.
And I graduated college at 50. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about my history.
Yeah. And then you, Loveland Politics. I met you as a member of the PAC.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So yeah, I got, I used to be one of those people who I voted for my city council and I just assumed that they were doing their job and didn't pay much attention. And then I guess it was probably in the 2016, 2017 era around there is when I'd be watching the news at night and Loveland was on the news just about every night and not in a good way.
No, that's when I got pulled in too.
Yeah.
And it sounds like all of us, it really was a small group of us.
It was.
But guess what? We came and we stayed.
Yes.
Right.
So, when I started watching all this craziness going on in the nightly news, I was like, I need to be more informed. I need to show up and find out what's going on in my hometown. They're making me look like an idiot here. So I went to City Hall and I started, watching council meetings. And I actually, every once in a while, I run across these notes. Before I got involved with other people who were also paying attention, I was watching for myself and taking notes. And I found these notes with, so-and-so always votes with so-and-so. It's always a 4-3 split vote. This 4-3 split vote,
That's funny.
So I was becoming very observant before I connected with other people who were also watching. And that's when I became part of the Hamlin Community Political Action Committee.
Gotcha. And you became you had a leadership role?
I did eventually. Leadership kind of evolved and changed, and the original founding members moved out of town and so stepped up with a couple of the folks and, started being what I call watchdogs and attending every single city council meeting and watching what was going on.
You rarely missed a meeting in the last
I don't know
how many years.
I bet I could probably count on maybe one or two hands the number of city council meetings that I have missed in the last since probably 2017.
Yeah, I believe it.
8 years.
What finally pulled the trigger for you to say, now I'm going to step up? I want to be a part of this.
So, I would say this has been a very tough decision for me because every single person who sits on city council right now, I helped elect. So it's been a very tough decision, but I have gradually over the last several years watched this evolution of what I believe is an unhealthy control over city council. I've watched the 7-0 votes with no conversation. And I've listened to some of the other city council members, and they'll say, there's nothing wrong with a 7-0 vote. Not always. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. But it's the no conversation. And, I asked questions behind the scenes and I got the information that I needed. So, why have the conversation behind the dais? Well, the why is because residents need to know. They just do.
Just talk through.
Yeah, talk through it.
Doesn't have to be grandstanding.
No.
There's a way to go. I think the way I view it is, but like what we saw under that era that got us involved, the Fitzgerald era, the drama behind the dais, right? It's almost a reaction to that, saying, all right, we don't want to be that, so we don't talk at all. It's almost like a kickback reaction to say, we're going to be the opposite. And I think what you're saying and what we're trying to realize now that we need is, okay, you don't have to be that. Exactly. You don't have to be what Mr. Butler did, right? But you can't be this either, right? There has to be a happy medium where, you're not fighting, you're not grandstanding, but you are having meaningful discussion.
Meaningful dialogue and, educating the residents. I mean, not everybody attends every single city council meeting like I do and a couple of the folks that I know. So if you're an occasional watcher, like, it's nice to hear what's going on behind the scenes. And, and I think that's fair.
I do.
So, it's been a very tough decision for me. And I can't point to any one particular reason.
Well, heck, and I've pushed for a long time.
I had several
You've had a lot of people doing that.
folks over the years try to convince me to
forcing
run.
that, right.
And I won't say that, like, I agree with a lot of the stuff that's going on in city council right now.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with a lot of it.
I think that's the thing too, and I've had conversations, is you don't have to say that to run and to make a difference. You don't have to say they're bad.
Exactly.
You can just say, hey, I think I'll do better in this one aspect or two aspects. I think that I could do this, which doesn't mean you've done a horrible job.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a ton of respect for every single person who sits on city council right now. They're good people. And I don't think any single one of them are out to, they don't have any kind of, motives that are, vicious in nature or anything like that. Like, nobody's doing anything like that. Everybody's just doing this because they have a love for their hometown.
They do.
And, so
their hearts are in the right place.
Their hearts are in the right place.
I would go back to what I talked about with Mr. Kulik and I, and Todd mentioned it in his podcast. If you listen to that, make sure you do. But it becomes stagnant. You forget what it's like to be on the other side of the dais. Todd was there. He had a chance to be off. He went to come back. I even listen to some of the words they tell me, and I'm like, ooh, you've lost a little bit of touch. You don't even realize what you're saying is showing me that you lost touch. But it's there. And part of it, and we can talk about it later. I might talk about it on a different podcast, but with this PFAS thing, sometimes with communication, sometimes I know from being on a committee, and that sometimes you get a lot of complaints. You get everything you do is you're going to get hit from a different side. When you get that way on council, which they do, I get that. Sometimes you just are like, okay, this is how the public is, and so you put on this thick skin. Well, that thick skin's not good.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though you need it for your mental health, that thick skin makes you change the way you look at what people need.
Absolutely. So it's been a tough decision. Like I said, not any one thing, but I've jotted a few things down because I figured you would ask this question. But I would say the first time I really started thinking about it seriously was 2 years ago when Dieter Hazelbaker ran, and she ran as an independent. I mean, you obviously know that there's this slate mentality where you almost can't do anything or get elected in unless you're part of a slate. Well, she chose to go at it alone. She was 1 against 3, and I watched. The attack was just relentless.
Brutal. It was
brutal. And I felt like it was just so uncalled for.
Yeah. I've had that feeling too.
Yeah. And, she has, and believe me, I had never met Deidre.
I love the fact that she is a resident that wants to run.
Right.
That is what I teach. I teach government. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
You don't have to have the resume in his local election. You don't have to have all those things. I celebrated the fact of what she was representing at that point.
Yeah.
And like you said, she got beat up.
She got beat up bad. And so, and I didn't know her. I had never met her before she made the announcement to run. And I had the same reaction that a lot of other folks did. Is like, where'd this person come from?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, she's never served on a committee. I've never seen her at City
George
Hall.
Soros.
What is she doing?
People really thought of those types of things. People really did talk to me about like,
who's backing her?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who went and tapped her?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like, no, she really is just legitimately
this is just somebody who wants to be involved.
right.
So, I watched the relentless attack on her, and she obviously lost.
But she did well.
She did,
Numbers
she
wise,
did well,
she did.
And in certain pockets, like, and please don't quote me because I'm not sure which pockets
Right.
off the top of my head right now. But she actually won in a couple of small areas. So I think she did very well given what she was up against. But since that happened, I have watched her step up in a big way.
Yeah.
Like, she has missed very few meetings. She has applied relentlessly to be on committees, and she's been denied. So here's somebody who wants to step up and serve her community, and she is not being allowed to.
Yeah.
And that really bothers me.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to talk about with Ryan Kulik more, is, do you go in a small town? I get it when a president wins the presidency, you get to pick your cabinet. You get to pick the supporters that helped you. And obviously, you're not going to put on your cabinet anybody that was on the other team.
Right.
And so some people say, well, in Loveland, we do the same thing, but with committees. And we're going to, if you get to pick your committee, and that's your right. And if you don't want other people, but my feeling is you probably agree with this because we saw it happen, is number one, you can't criticize somebody for not being on one and then not allow them on one. And then number two, we need people that are motivated about this town. We have a lot of them, but why not? Why count somebody out? Why keep somebody off? And people were punished and kicked off committees.
Yes.
We don't need to get into that right now because this is about your political race. But those things I think need to be. Oh, is it good? Well, those are things that, again, I'm not saying it's not, in my point of view, it's not an evil. It's politics, and it has to be discussed because I think one side is saying, well, that's politics and that's how it works on the national level. And my argument is,
but we're not.
We're not. Yeah, and there's a lot of national level coming into it.
Small town, Loveland, Ohio, 13,000 residents.
Right.
We're a nonpartisan race.
Well, and that's the other thing.
Yeah, we're a nonpartisan race.
Let's keep it that way too.
It needs to stay that way. It needs to stay that way. So, just the bitterness that happened when she attempted to step up and serve her community, to me, was just so uncalled for.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning of me really kind of massaging the idea of running. And that was also about the time where, to be candid, it was the beginning of the end for the PAC. Because...
well, the PAC, just so people don't know, very bipartisan.
Very bipartisan.
Yes.
Our members at the time, and from the beginning all the way up until the time it was dissolved, we had Republicans, we had Democrats, and we made a video at one time.
We did.
Look, we're nonpartisan. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, and we all get along. We like
and
each
it was
other.
real.
And it was real.
It was real because none of that stuff seeped down yet.
Yeah. So, but the PAC, that was the beginning of the end for the PAC, because one of the things that the PAC brought to the table was we interviewed potential candidates, people who were running for city council, and almost vetted them, so to speak, to see, is this somebody who's going to serve the community well? And we would offer up endorsements. And that endorsement in years past, in elections past,
It was big.
Was very big.
I'd say it was the biggest one in the city.
Yeah, it was huge. Well, when Deidre decided to run and we put out the call to other candidates to be interviewed with the PAC, and we were not granted access to the candidates that were running on the Mayor Bailey slate. They refused to interview with us unless we could confirm ahead of time.
But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
The whole point
Unless
is
we
an
could
interview.
Confirm that like we would not endorse Deidre Hazelbaker, and that we would, they just couldn't think of a scenario in their mind where an endorsement for their entire slate.
Yeah, it was either if you don't endorse us all, then you're going to be hurting that one that's left out.
Right, exactly.
And we're not. Yeah. I
What's
remember
that
that.
gonna
I
look
forgot
like?
about that, but
Yep.
now I remember.
What's that going to
now.
look like? Well, to me, I mean, when you do not give us access to candidates, you cut our mission off at the knees. So that was the beginning of the end for the PAC, because we can't talk to candidates anymore.
Well, you can't
help
endorse their candidate,
endorse them.
which hurts a little bit for them, even though they might have won. But it also just the viewpoint and seeing how you're going to play this game now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Changed.
and of course when and I was the person who took that phone call to say you can't have access to the candidates unless, my response was obviously, I cannot guarantee that.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that.
I was gone by then, so I didn't know about that, but
Yeah.
that's interesting to know.
Yeah. So, and without, a preconceived idea of where that endorsement was going to go, we were not given access to candidates.
But how would you know until you interview?
I'm like, well,
If you're legit, if you're not just a front. And that's what's really cool is we weren't a front. I remember having arguments with you guys because I disagreed with somebody that we were going to endorse. These were real conversations. I was frustrated at one point, but that's what made it so good.
Yeah, so I think that was the beginning of the end for the PAC.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that, that was, again, like I said, there's not one thing that I can point to. It's just this evolution of just these things that chipped away at me. And so,
that's how most things are, right?
So, yeah. And so the beginning of the end for the PAC was kind of another little feather there that happened. So I had been approached by a number of folks and said, would you consider running? And I really wasn't something I was considering. And every time somebody would ask me, I'd be like, no, I just don't, it's just not, I don't know that I want to. So there was a moment where, my friend Lisa Freeman, she's yours as well.
Yes.
So we were out having dinner one night.
Smart, tough lady.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She's actually my treasurer for my campaign.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. But, so we were having dinner one night and we ran into the mayor.
Okay.
And she stopped, at our table to just say hello. And Lisa came right out and said, we're trying to convince Sherry to run for city council. What do you think about this? And her face got white as a ghost. And she gave a very correct answer, which was, I would never discourage anybody from running for city council. But just so you know, we have already chosen the third person to run on our slate.
Okay.
And
that was for the Deidre time or
that was during the Deidre time.
Okay.
Yes. And, at the time, the mayor and I ran in similar circles. In my mind, she was well aware of the fact that folks were trying to convince me to run for council. And so the fact that they had, and that person that they chose was then turned out to be Brian Goodyear. So, so the fact that they went out of their way to recruit someone.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. That was my frustration. I will say, I think everyone in the PAC thought it was your turn and thought that it was going to be all around accepted that if the next team comes around, that you would be kind of, invited to be a part of that team.
Yeah.
And so I know that I felt very much the same way as you did.
And here we change topics to PFAS.
So, I will say, this topic came up at the Chamber Forum. And at the time I spoke at Chamber Forum, my response was I viewed PFAS into kind of three pillars. One was
Oh,
Do we have a
I
problem?
loved it. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Do we have a problem? Number one, yes, we do, as does the entire nation, so to speak. It's actually a global problem. So do we have a problem? Yes. Second pillar is the city doing anything for this long term? And then the third pillar is short term. The answer to the second one was yes. I absolutely believe the city is doing something in the long term. We've applied for grants. Dave Kennedy is, in my mind, the greatest grant writer, and you know, the amount of money that he brings into the cities in grants is incredible. So he's seeking grants to pay for a new facility. So the long-term solution, I believe, is being addressed.
Yes.
The short-term solution, I think, is where we could improve. However, I will say, since the forum, I have talked with a Loveland resident who had a conversation with me about PFAS. And I think my third pillar in terms of short-term solution has either broadened or there's a fourth pillar now.
Yeah.
And that is communication.
Right.
Because, you know, when this resident is very passionate about this topic, and I'm going to call this resident, I wouldn't do that. But, and this resident has like mountains of documentation and pretty graphs, pretty charts, none of which in my mind was new information. And I'm sure you've probably seen the video that I posted recently about it, which of course of getting
the letter. Yes, that everybody's commenting. I do want to comment on that, but keep going.
So, you know, and I said this to the resident, like there's, you know, all of this is information that I already knew, but this person had done a public records request, and in this mountain of documentation that the person had was an email from the Ohio EPA to City of Loveland staff. And there was a bullet point in there that said, you need to communicate this to your, I can't remember the exact language, your users,
right,
as soon as possible. And that bothered me. And there's a tie a little bit to the
Did anything come out? That's what, because there was some stuff on the internet that.
So, and that's where I say the short-term solution is either expanded or there's a fourth pillar in my mind.
But I know people on social media today, right, came rebuked you.
Yes.
So were they right?
In my mind, no. Because to me, that communication needs to be very proactive. I mean, you're talking about chemicals that are carcinogens. They cause cancer.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to get to the point.
Yes.
And I don't want to cut you off, but I told Sherry before this meeting, I was fired up from the responses today from your thing, right? But I didn't know, were they right or whatever. So I went in and they said, look at the website. And I will say this. I think the website does a great job. And I know you may not agree with all this. I think the website does a great job of giving information. But that's, in my mind, tucked in charts and graphs. Yes. And what the city put out there is, quote, currently our water satisfies all current state and federal environmental protection agency standards. And that, to me, my frustration level went through the roof. I even went into ChatGPT. But I said, am I wrong here? But is this misleading? Because I gave it the numbers. I said, looking at their chart, we're about 17 PPTs. Yes. It's supposed to be 4. Yes. And I know we don't have to, we're not going to be punished for anything yet till 2027. Not enforceable yet. But I said, is this statement, currently our water satisfies all current state and federal environmental protection agency standards, I said, is that misleading? And ChatGPT came back and said, yes, it is misleading. If you are told to tell the public, like you said, and it may be a world issue, but you need to come out with a warning and say, first of all, this stuff can hurt you. We are up to 4 times the amount that it's supposed to be. Yes. And not even long-term goals are 0. We're 4 times the amount that we're trying to work towards. Right. And you are not telling anybody that. You're just saying we're meeting the standard.
And it depends, when they say, well, it's on our website, you are depending on people to proactively go to your website. And there's just this very generic statement in there that says, if you want more information, go to Ohio. It's either ohio.epa or epa.ohio. I can't remember which. But anyway, it just refers them to another website. So you're depending on other people to do your research.
But my thing is, most people are going to stop when it says this. And I think, I'll be honest, I've dug into this before. I think I've stopped here because I trust my city. You should let pregnant moms know, like, you can't boil this out.
And I can't disagree with that. I know, because you and I, like you said, we had a conversation about this earlier, where you want to make sure vulnerable people, and in my opinion, it's everybody, not just vulnerable.
So the warning needs to be, guess what? Loveland water is an enigma. It's worse. It is worse than most all around.
Argument that, yes, it is a global problem. It is a nationwide problem. That doesn't give you forgiveness to not notify people. But lots of people are using this excuse that, like, well, this is not unique to us. It's not. But what does that have to do with notifying people? When the charter was amended, we sent out this giant book, this packet, to every single resident in the city to let them know of the content of our charter. Why can't we do the same thing with notifying them that there are cancer-causing agents in our water?
It's got to be a warning. They told us to put a warning out, and that's a real warning, and not one that says, hey, we're fine, we're meeting the standards.
Yeah, and that's where, that statement to me is very deceiving, because the EPA has announced new standards. They did this in April of 2024, but they gave municipalities 5 years to meet the standard. So the standard is 4. Well, it depends on which PFAS you're talking about, but it's not enforceable until 2029. And so when the city says we're meeting all current EPA standards,
the standard of not enforceable, but you're still drinking this level that is 4 times above what they recommend.
And I live in Loveland.
Exactly. So your job is to protect me and my family. One, I think it has to say more of a warning. And number 2, I want anybody that's going into this council to take me in this argument seriously.
Absolutely. And the short-term solutions in my mind. So there's a couple of things. Number 1 is the communication. In my opinion, we need to be sending out alert. We need to be sending out alerts where it's anybody who's signed up for Civic Plus, to get the notifications on their phone, or it is a hard copy letter, which would be my preference, because not everybody is signed up to receive emergency text messages. But we need to alert people of these hazards with more than just, here's the link to find out more. Give them real data. Also, there are websites out there that will give you filtration systems that eliminate PFAS, or at least bring it to EPA standards. And I do mean standards, not unenforceable standards. Well, there was a couple of problems with the comment that came on my video. One was, there was an accusation that I had removed a post.
I saw that.
I don't know what that person is talking about. I have never removed anyone's post from not only my personal page, but from my campaign site. I don't know what that person's talking about. But then there was a comment that came in that says we do a great job of communicating, and on our website. And in my mind, that statement proves my point. You are depending on residents to proactively go to a website
For a health issue.
or a health issue
That you are getting fed.
that is coming through your tab. That is coming through your chat. And I look at now, this example is, my mom doesn't live inside the city limits of Loveland, so this is just, but it's an example. But somebody like my mom mom doesn't use a computer. She wouldn't know how to get to a website if you tried to coach her through it. There's got to be people like that in Loveland. Not everybody is going to go to a website to find out this information. So that's my soapbox.
So you had one other temporary solution.
So under sink filtration systems. So I actually went out and looked at like the number of households. This is according to the city's own website. The number of households in the city is 5,094. So roughly, 5,100. So if you were to look at, there are people who can afford to do a whole house filtration system, but if you look at half the households in the city limits are under the median income, those people might need help. They can't go out they can't afford to spend $6,000 on a whole house reverse osmosis system. Right. But if you go to Amazon and search for PFAS filters, you can find NSF certified filters for about $40. Nice. Yeah. So
per faucet.
On your faucet. Right. So if you gave, half of the 5,000 homes, you're talking about 2,500-ish. If they make less than the median income, you give them each $40 or a filter. Find a closet or a storage room down at, City Hall with a stock of these. And we could probably, if we buy them in bulk, we could get them cheaper. Even cheaper. And you offer those to households.
I love that.
Yeah. You're talking about $100,000, or again, if we get them at a discounted rate, it would be even less than that. But we have spent over $70,000 on the Heights grant program. This is no more or less important than that to me. So the movie that I was telling you about earlier called Dark Waters is all about this, the DuPont chemical factory and how they were, poisoning water systems and stuff like that. There's a scene in there where the farmer, like his livestock, his cattle were all dying. Wow. And he was literally removing their brains and their hearts and things like that to try to figure out what was going on, because they were dying at as these incredible numbers. And they have enlarged brains, enlarged hearts. So it's a great movie. I'm actually surprised that it didn't.
What's it called again?
It's called Dark Waters.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
It's got the lead character. It was filmed in Cincinnati. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was filmed in Cincinnati. There's all kinds of really cool scenery from downtown Cincinnati. But Mark Ruffalo is the lead character.
Nice.
So.
All right, so we got a lot of good conversation going. Let's talk right to the voter. Why vote for you?
So, I believe I have a really unique perspective. I grew up in this town, so I have this ability to recognize that we have a rich history and that needs to be protected. But I also recognize that we need to grow and adapt. But I believe we can do both. We can do more than one thing at the same time. We can walk and chew gum. So we can have development that is, smart, thoughtful, and respects the community. So I think, not rolling out the red carpet to every developer that comes into town is a good thing. I think residents need a stronger voice. I would like to see how committee appointments are made change, so we don't have the situation where these people who do a fantastic job and are willing to step up and serve. Now, that's going to take time because the charter is what gives the mayor the ability to do this. So
and I think we do have to mention that. Nothing illegal is being done.
No.
You have to say that, right?
No.
Right.
But I will say in my mind that there are some unethical things going on. And this is kind of bouncing off the topic of finishing my conversation about why I think they should vote for me. But, I heard on an earlier podcast that you did with another candidate, and he made the comment, about the 7-0 voting. And he said, if there's an example of a 7-0 vote that they would have voted differently on, I would like to hear that. So here's an example. So, I serve on Parks and Rec. There was an opening on Parks and Rec. the mayor put forth an appointment for someone who did not even live inside the city limits of Loveland. The person was not even eligible to serve. That appointment went through unanimously, even though the person said on their application that they didn't live inside the city limits of Loveland. So that's an example. That application was available to every city council member, and yet they still voted hook, line, and sinker with one another. It was a resident who caught that and said, this person isn't even eligible. What are you going to do about it? Before the person attended their first meeting, I'm using air quotes. I know your listeners can't see that, but I'm using air quotes. The person resigned, and there was another appointment made. An appointment that I felt like was a conflict of interest. And I spoke to that in open forum. I won't name the person's names because I will say, no offense to this person. They're a community volunteer. I think they do a great job. Nothing against this person. It's the process. It's the process. So, I spoke at open forum about what I perceived to be a conflict of interest. The vote started going, when it came time to vote, the mayor doubled down and went through an explanation of why they thought this was the best appointment. The vote started going down city council, and it was yes, 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 all the way down. Nobody questioned it. It got to Andy Bateman, and there was this very long, dramatic pause where he looked to be considering a different vote. And there was a look that was shot to him.
Oh, wow. Well, you're there. So
yeah, I saw it. Yeah, there was a look that was shot at him. And as soon as that, the laser beam came to him, he very quickly said yes. Like he was not going to go against the mayor. And then it came to the final vote, and Mr. Ori abstained. Oh, wow. He abstained. Now,
do we know why?
I reached out to him afterwards, and he felt like I had some very valid points and that needed to be considered. But I reached out to Mr. Bateman as well. I was like, what was the purpose of the long pause? So they both said they thought that I had very valid points at my open forum speech, but at the end of the day, it was the mayor's right to do this. Yeah. So the thing is, both of them said at the end of the dais. So with the vote as it had happened to that point was 5-0. So, he was going to be appointed no matter what. Sure. So even 2 no votes wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. But they refused to go against the mayor. And if they felt like my speech at open forum had valid points and that it maybe needed to be researched for further, why couldn't it have been tabled?
I think what you're bringing up is, do they truly feel free to dissent?
And, the Mr. Ori, when he abstained, the mayor has an obligation for anybody who abstains to require them to explain that abstention. Nothing. So anyway, I'll jump back to my conversation. Sure. So, committees, I think, we need a change in the way committees are appointed. We need to be able to, people who want to serve should be allowed to serve. I've spent many years volunteering on boards and committees and sitting in the audience at nearly every city council meeting. And in my mind, as valuable as the experiences have been on committees, the experience in the audience has been even more valuable, watching what happens, watching the votes, watching the relationship.
Like your notes.
Yeah, my notes when I first started going. Yeah, so and I've built lots of friendships with folks that are sitting beside me out in the audience. And they are there for the same reason that I'm there, which is nothing more than it's personal. We love our community, and we want to make sure that the people that we've elected do the right thing. And, I think it's just time for me to be on the other side of the dais and have that personal, that sense of wanting to serve counts for a vote.
Looking ahead in Loveland. Come to the screening of the movie Frogman at the Loveland Stage Company. This was a huge success last year, and we would love to see you again this year. Come celebrate our local cryptid, Frogman, in a horror film just in time for Halloween. Tickets are only $10, and they can be purchased at the Loveland Stage Company website, and I have a link in the description. It's Saturday, October 25th. The showing is at 8. Doors open at 7:15. We hope to see you there. We have something truly special here in Loveland. Thank you for listening, and have a great week. This episode was produced and engineered by Mike Meldon right here in Loveland, and please note that the opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily represent the views of our sponsors or organization.